If you're jumping into Drupal for the first time, you might find it difficult to configure, change the appearance, and also manage your content. In this course, my goal is to provide you with enough information so that you can create and use your Drupal content management system in as little as 2 hours. Before using Drupal, you'll want to see if it's a right content management system for you. I'll go over the top CMSs, discuss pros and cons, and the reasons I use Drupal over other systems. From there, I'll jump into Drupal hosting accounts. Not all servers can be used for Drupal. While many of the top hosting providers say that they support it, their infrastructure just isn't fine-tuned for it. I'll discuss my recommendations based on my personal experiences. From there, I'll go over 6 platforms to help you make an educated decision on the web server that fits your needs. Before publishing content, you'll want to learn about changing the appearance of Drupal. While you'll have a lot of themes to choose from, you'll need to do more than just selecting one and activating it. This lesson will discuss Drupal-specific processes that you'll need to do in order to make your website look stunning. After setting up your theme, I'll go over steps for extending Drupal's features through modules. I'll provide several lessons that will discuss my recommended modules, and I'll also show you how to configure them step by step. I'll discuss the media library for easily managing your website assets, creating search engine friendly URLs with the Path Auto module, the meta tags module for SEO, and the CSS editor module that will allow you to change the appearance of your site using custom CSS. In the taxonomy lesson, I'll cover different ways that you can categorize and tag content. Drupal allows you to create custom taxonomy as well. This is useful for site owners that want to create mega sites with extreme content silos or want a way to categorize various elements of the site for advanced content queries. In the blocks and regions lesson, you'll learn how to insert existing or custom content into various areas of your web pages. This will allow you to customize your header, sidebar, and footer regions to add custom content like banner ads, alerts, custom menus, and other relevant content. Finally, I'll discuss content types and how you can search, add, and edit articles and basic pages. This key lesson will allow you to provide content that informs, educates, or entertains your audience. From there, you'll be able to get traffic to your website and start engaging with your audience. In this lesson, I'll be covering the pros and cons of using Drupal. We're here at Kinsta.com, where they are covering reasons why you should use one over the other, but they are a managed WordPress provider, so of course their opinions are biased. So what I want to do is give you my take on them. I've been using both of these solutions for well over 10 years, and I believe that I can provide you with some guidance for using both. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the big players that are using WordPress. We have whitehouse.gov, we have Sony Mobile, The New Yorker, some big players, but Drupal has some as well. We have the University of Colorado, State of Colorado, The Economist, Dallas Cowboys, NASA.gov. I'm here in the Bay Area where one of the biggest users is Stanford University. The last time I attended their Drupal camp, they had well over 1,800 websites that were powered using Drupal, and they also have some WordPress installations, but they are mostly known to be using Drupal. So let's talk about the market share here. They have only 4.6%. Drupal only has 4.6%. And as you can see here, WordPress has 59.8% of the market share. And then we have some other players here like Joomla that has 6.4%. We have Magento. But what we're going to be covering are the advantages of both. And I'll talk about some of the disadvantages as well. So WordPress, it's known to be a very easy to use platform. Back when I was selling WordPress as an agency, I would tell my customers that if you know how to publish an email, send in an email, or create a Word document, you pretty much can use WordPress. And I think it's extremely easy to use. It's extremely easy to add themes and plugins to extend it. Drupal has that ability to extend itself as well through modules and their themes. Between both of these platforms, I can still say that Drupal is more complicated. You might be wondering, why should I use a more complicated solution? Well, it has more flexibility. I believe that if you're trying to scale horizontally or vertically, Drupal can handle that using its core functionality where WordPress cannot. In order to scale in this kind of way, you have to add a bunch of plugins into WordPress. And I believe that comes with an issue, whether it's reducing performance or reducing security using third-party plugins. It's just something that I've learned over the years. I'll go over my story soon. And if I'm trying to create like a microsite, or if I need access to a lot of small business or marketing plugins, I would say that WordPress is still an awesome solution. It really depends on, again, what is the use case, who is the audience that I'm providing the solution to, and how much resources. Do they have access to developers? Are they a developer? Do they have access to more capital? Because I believe that if you're using Drupal, there is a larger cost to actually set it up. With WordPress, because there's a larger community and also because of a better user interface, in my opinion, then there are going to be lower development costs. There's less work that's involved in installing a theme, and even upgrading WordPress is very easy. When I went from version 4, later version of 4, and then went into version 5, I was able to do that very easily, and many other non-technical users could do that. However, with Drupal, it's different. The whole platform from version 7 to version 8, there was a major overhaul. They went into something called the Symfony framework for PHP, and there's a lot of benefits of using a PHP framework when it comes to being able to reuse components. That's mostly from a development standpoint. It just comes with a lot of built-in features, especially with security. So that's very important. And if I go down this feature list, I'll see a bunch of other stuff like being able to support multilingual sites that's built into Drupal core. Also taxonomies, that's like tags and categories. WordPress has that too. But if I'm building a mega site with extreme silos, with various different types of content and also different niches, let's say if I have a sub niche within my site for wealth, and then I have another one for weight loss. So those are very different, talking about money, talking about weight. And of course you want to try to separate the content here. You could do that in WordPress, you could have categories, but Drupal allows you to pretty much have the ability to create kind of like subsites within a mega site. WordPress has that capability too, but in reality, Drupal has the ability to cleanly isolate the content and also provide a very good look and feel, where you can also have isolated headers where one header appears on one site and it's different on another. So again, you can change the look and feel, even the colors, very easily using the core. With WordPress, you can do that with third-party plugins and special kinds of themes. But again, with Drupal, you could do that with any theme. So there's a lot of power and flexibility with Drupal if you're going to scale your site. Now, if you are creating a personal blog, a small website, both of these solutions can be used. If you are creating a CRM where you're managing your entire sales process, both of these solutions can be used as a CRM. That's kind of crazy because they're content management systems, but if you have a module for Drupal or a plugin for WordPress that can create a CRM, pretty much you don't need to just use it as a website or a blogging platform just for content. You can use it as a special software solution, again, as a CRM, even a shopping cart. If you wanted to sell a bunch of products, it could be a handful of products or even 100,000 products. I believe both of these solutions can be set up to do so by using this way of extending it through WordPress plugins or Drupal modules. So what I've mentioned so far is that you can actually transform both of these platforms to create a different software solution, pretty much, where you're using it for a tremendously different use case. Again, like a CRM. Or you can use plugins or Drupal modules to just supplement what you have to make either the experience better for you as an admin or for your customers, your prospects, whoever's viewing your website. So let's talk about, we talked about the learning curve. I mentioned that WordPress is easy to use. I agree with that. And then we can talk about the plugins. With WordPress, you have access to 53,000 plus free plugins. With Drupal, you only have access to 4,000 with version 8 here. So that seems pretty crazy. You might think, gosh, just because WordPress has a huge library of plugins, maybe I should use WordPress. If you are using or trying to find some way to extend your site to do something non-standard, I can say that you can find some plugins in WordPress's library, their repository, that may not be in Drupal because Drupal has a smaller library. But if you are, let's say, just creating a website to provide content, whether it's to inform, educate, or entertain your visitors, both of these platforms can do it. And I also have to say that you don't need a whole bunch of plugins. You just need a small handful of plugins. And this will help with both performance and security. The more modules or plugins that you load into your CMS, it will greatly slow down your site. And speed is a very important factor when it comes to being found in Google. That's called SEO, search engine optimization. You don't want to have a slow site. So there are ways to mitigate that, but from the module or extensibility side, you just want to get a small handful of these in your system if you need them at all. So both platforms will come with its base install. I'll call that a core. It just depends on how you're installing it. But if you're installing whether it's WordPress or Drupal, just alone, the bare installation package, let's just call that the core. Once you have all those, it'll come with some plugins for WordPress and for Drupal, some modules. Above that, I would recommend less than a half a dozen extra ones if you need them. And I also must say that Drupal typically needs to have some extra plugins for certain use cases that are very important for trying to be found in Google. Like, let's say you want to have URLs that are structured in a certain way. That can come with a certain module, where WordPress has that through something called permalinks. So there's some extra work which I'll go through in this course to add that. But all I'm saying here is do not use too many modules. A lot of people that get fixated on modules and plugins, they play around with them like entertainment, like toys. You don't want to do that with your live site because it's bad for performance. It's also bad for security, which I'll go into next. I'm going to go over security here. And you can see the great difference between all these major platforms. And at the bottom of the list here is Drupal. Drupal is very secure, especially when you're using like a framework such as Symfony. They're using that as their base PHP framework. That's what the developers of Drupal are using to build upon, whereas WordPress has its own platform. At the point of time that I'm recording this video, WordPress has their own code that they're developing on. They have pretty much their own framework, where Drupal is using a world-class framework. I can say within the top 2 PHP frameworks for developers. And you'll find a variety of resources out there looking at Symfony. And again, they are one of the top frameworks that PHP developers, that's the language that both of these platforms are built on. And Drupal is using a rock solid one. I want to share a security story that happened over 10 years ago where I was managing over 400 WordPress websites. And I also had a small handful of Drupal 6 websites at the time. And because I was so involved in building out WordPress sites for myself, but also for clients, a lot of these Drupal sites were ignored. And something happened where across a span of 2 days, all of my WordPress sites got hacked. And many of these sites, they had security plugins, and I did as much as possible to make sure that everything was updated once a month. I was at least once a month, whether it was the WordPress installation, themes, or plugins. But even though I did all these things, the sites got hacked still. And this was across 3 or 4 website hosting companies. And I was scrambling around trying to figure out what to do, made sure that I contacted the web hosting companies to figure out, how my sites got hacked. They couldn't find anything. So I tried to figure out what I could possibly do. And so what I ended up doing is that I did have backups of my static files, my databases, and ended up restoring everything. And I had to make sure that I contacted my clients to let them know what happened. But it was a very stressful time. And the thing that I realized at that time was I had to learn more about securing my sites, hardening my servers, and just learn generally more about cybersecurity. And even after learning a lot of that, I found ways to actually mitigate these risks, but still, there are still going to be vulnerabilities no matter what across both these systems, whether it's Drupal or WordPress. But I can say that even after other hack attacks after that, from that time to today, I've never had a Drupal site hacked into, at least visibly, and I'm just crossing my fingers, because one of the things that I felt years back is that if I just utilize Drupal for these long-term sites, especially for client sites, I wouldn't have had to deal with any of that. And so moving forward, whenever I build out websites for people say, hey, build me a WordPress site, I'm providing the benefits and my story about Drupal, because I think it's still one of the most secure platforms out there. And when I think about operating systems like Windows, Mac OS, and Linux, the most popular OS will get hacked into. That's just how it is. It's extremely visible, and hackers will try to find out how to make the biggest impact using their tools and hack and impact as many people as possible. And they typically focus on solutions that are easy to break into or are highly visible. And as I mentioned, both of these solutions, they do have vulnerabilities, but most likely the people that have the most popular solutions get impacted more. So if you are trying to find a way to build out sites for the long term, you want to save yourself from these headaches and just have more peace of mind, or you want to make sure that your clients have more peace of mind, I highly recommend Drupal. In this lesson, I'll be covering web servers for Drupal. First, I'll talk about why you need to listen to this lesson. Why are these servers very important for you, especially if you're not technical? And then also about operating systems. Why is that so important? And then also 3 different types of plans that we'll be exploring. So first of all, you need this web server to serve your content. So if you want a website, this is a requirement. You have to have the system that will host your software. It will provide the content to your visitors, whether it's text-based content, images, video files, audio files, and many more. So this is what provides an interface for administrators as well as the interface for visitors. So it is the core of your website. When it comes to operating systems, there's going to be 2 major players. One's going to be a Windows-based server, and another one's going to be Linux. And I would say stay away from Microsoft-based operating systems when it comes to web servers for open source solutions. And the reason why I say that is because many of these PHP-based software solutions, such as Drupal, most of the developers develop on Linux-based operating systems. That's an environment, and you'll want to be able to provide an environment that's as close as you can to what the developer created the software in. And that's going to be Linux in the majority of these situations for PHP open source solutions. So let's talk about these 3 different types of servers. So the first type is going to be a shared server, second one's going to be a virtual private server, and then the third is going to be a Drupal managed service provider. Now, there's so many options here. From the business side, people will look at Microsoft Azure, Amazon AWS, Google Cloud. Those are all great solutions, but first of all, they don't provide Drupal support. and then also they are more expensive. So those are pretty much the big disadvantages here. And if you're just getting started, I would say start off with a SiteGround account. Now that is my most affordable option. This is for people that are, again, just starting out, and it's going to be for a personal website or a small business. So this is, again, the most affordable option that will provide you with a wide variety of options here. And the largest cap here that I see is 100,000 visits a month. For most businesses that are positioned to profit, 100,000 visitors is a lot. And by the time you hit that amount of visitors, you should be in a position to spend more money on a web server. So I'll be going over some more expensive options there and why you need more expensive options. So the first option is going to be the cheapest, and it only supports one website, while the other ones allow you to install unlimited Drupal sites. Unlimited sounds good, but it's not the full truth, because it really depends on how many resources you're consuming. This sounds kind of technical, but because these are shared accounts, whatever you do on the server will impact other customers that are sharing that server, and then what other customers do can impact your business as well, or your website. The benefit is that you get the server at an affordable price, you get awesome Drupal support, and then also you have the ability to host your email accounts. So whether it's one account or even over 100 accounts, you could do that with these shared accounts. There's going to be a whole bunch of other ones that promote themselves as Drupal compatible web hosting accounts. While Drupal works on many of those other cheap accounts, the performance is bad. So SiteGround would be my choice for an affordable account. And then if you're ready to graduate, or if you have a development background, what I mean by that is that you're able to go into Linux, you're able to install software, design software, or even go into command line and utilize that, then a VPS account might be okay for you. It's a more advanced solution. And if you don't know anything about this, you could go to the next solution that I'll be talking about. But with VPS accounts, these are very similar to the other cloud accounts that I mentioned in the beginning, whether it's Google, Microsoft, or Amazon, but they're more affordable. And what you can see here is that a 2-core solution with 4 gigabytes is going to start off at less than $15 a month. This solution is great for people who want an affordable solution, but they know how to install Drupal, they know how to install MySQL, MariaDB, and also even an email server. You're going to need that too. So going into these solutions, the one that I got, the closest one to me, I'm here in Silicon Valley, the closest one was in Montreal. So location makes a difference. So if I'm trying to access a server in San Francisco versus one in Montreal, I'm going to notice a difference. So there's going to be a lag, a latency accessing a server that's further away. However, as a visitor, I can use something called CDN, a content delivery network, to boost the performance. That's kind of technical, but I can use one like Cloudflare.com, and I can use that to serve content even faster to people in different regions. But if I'm not using a CDN at all, I would say if I want faster performance in my region, then I would pick DigitalOcean or Linode. I use both of these interchangeably. They are very similar to me, and what you'll find is that a similar solution, similar infrastructure, is going to cost you more. It's going to cost you $20 a month. Difference with Linode and DigitalOcean is that they do provide a lot of tutorials on popular open source solutions such as Drupal on their website. OVH is not going to provide you with a lot of support. If you have server related issues, you can ask questions about that. But if you have other questions related to the software issues you're having on their servers, they're not going to help you. DigitalOcean and Linode, they're more open and they're going to cost a little more, and they're all great providers to me. The third type of solution that you'll find here is going to be Drupal focused. They're going to provide a wide range of Drupal services, and their servers are tuned to Drupal. So what you'll find is good performance for Drupal, but also good support, especially for the long term. So Pantheon starts off at $29 a month and Acquia starts at $141 a month. Both of these solutions are the top two that I would recommend for use cases that consist of large sites, like enterprise level sites, companies that are concerned about their reputation or their brand, and then anyone who wants to have a better performance stack that deals with development in the back end. These companies provide you with different environments for development and testing and launching into a live environment. But if you are concerned about running a website without any previous Drupal knowledge or even Linux knowledge, Pantheon and Acquia would be the two solutions that I would highly recommend. And what I've seen, even when there was a major release between version 7 to version 8, this was like one of the largest changes in the code base for Drupal, because they went into a framework, a PHP framework called Symfony, and it is a very big change and it required a lot when people were upgrading. And for companies that just had a hard time upgrading, what I've seen across both of these is that they've had extended support that was past what Drupal was offering, and they were able to offer security patches to extend the life of those solutions, for Drupal. So if you are looking for somebody that's happy to help you out with the appearance of your site, help you out with maintaining your site and dealing with system upgrades, then these two, Pantheon and Acquia, would be the choices that I would recommend. In this lesson, I'll go over the easiest way to install Drupal. Here we have this Get Started button. I'm here at the pantheon.io site, and this is just one of the providers that provides managed services for Drupal. And so if I click on this Get Started button, I'll be able to set up a free trial. And in this free trial, they say that you only have to pay when your site goes live. So what you'll want to do here is fill out all the fields here. You can use your LinkedIn account if you want, or you can use your Google account. But make sure that you select the appropriate options here. This is required. Make sure that you read through their terms of use and then agree to them. Then make sure that you enter in your company or work email. If you are not doing this for your company, then just go ahead and put your first and last name in company if you are a sole proprietor, and then enter your email here. This could be your own business email or even your personal email address. Then fill out the rest of the form. Then you have this right here. Are you an agency? Are you an EDU? If you are not a web development company, you are not offering services or websites to individuals or companies, you don't have to select that first option. If you are not an educational institution, you do not have to select Are you an EDU? So from there, just go ahead and click on Sign Up, and then you'll be able to create your Drupal account. After logging into your free trial, I'm going to show you how to create your Drupal site. You'll have a variety of options here, but the two main ones are migrating from an existing site or creating a new one. And since we're creating a Drupal site, I'll click on this button here. And when you create your Drupal site, you'll be selecting a name. This name must be a unique name. It's not just unique in your account, it's unique across all of the Pantheon accounts. And so let's go ahead and just type one. And then this name here will be this lowercase subdomain name. And development URLs, they will start with a dev dash. So even though I put dev here, it's going to have two devs, a dev dash dev Charles. And let's just show you what happens if I take that out. You'll see it says dev dash Charles. But I usually like to add this just to create a unique name so I don't have to deal with it. And this is just, again, a development site, and your real domain will be something that you select and will be different than this, of course. So let's go ahead and click on continue after selecting your region. And you could read some details here, but if you are creating a website or business for a specific region, make sure that you pick the one that's closest to you. From here, you'll be given the option to pick between WordPress and a few Drupal installations here. I mostly use Pantheon for Drupal, and what you'll see here is the latest Drupal that is set up for Pantheon. That does not mean it's the latest version that's out there that's available from the Drupal.org site. At this point in time, Drupal 9 is available, but this is the latest one that is supported through Pantheon on this free trial. So I'm going to go ahead and click on deploy. And then it's going to go through the process of setting it up. I just unpaused my recorder. The process roughly took about 3 minutes. So now I'm going to click on this to visit my Pantheon site dashboard. Okay, there are a variety of options here that are specific to Pantheon. If you are installing this on another server from another company, it will be a totally different process. Pantheon offers a dev and test and live environment. So typically what people will do is that they'll develop some site or even code, and then they'll test it, and then when they're ready to go live, they'll push the site into this environment. However, we're not going to go through that. We're just going to go through the initial setup of Drupal at this point in time. And to do that, all we have to do is click on this button. And this Drupal screen is something that is very typical in the installation process. So what you'll want to do is select your language, click on the button. I typically select standard. If you do want to see a demo just to play around with, you can click on that, the demo option, but I'm just going to click on standard. That's typically what I use. Okay, so far I've added most of my information. Go ahead and click on my country. And then I'm here on the West Coast in California. So I'm going to go through America, and I typically pick Los Angeles. And then I accept these update notifications and click on save and continue. In this lesson, I'll be covering the admin dashboard of Drupal. After logging into my Pantheon account, I'll be able to go into my Drupal account by clicking on this thumbnail. From there, I'll be reaching my Pantheon options. But to go into the site, I want to click on Site Admin. And then here, I'll see my site. It's using this blue theme called Bartik. It's a default theme of Drupal. And then we have these menu options here. These are only shown to the admin. And of course, that depends on how we set up this menu. There are different advanced options, but by default, this is what you'll see as an admin. And then clicking this and then clicking into it again, I can toggle the menu. Shortcuts is where I can place links to different areas of this admin account just to easily get to different options. And then this is where I can go into my account. On the far right, I can go ahead and log out if I wanted to. Clicking on manage, I have this first option here. This is where I can go through the creation and viewing, editing, and deletion of various types of content. And here, this is where I can type in a keyword and search for content by different types and different statuses. And if you have different languages, you can do that as well. And this is just a filter, search and filter content. Using this tab for comments, I can publish and unapprove comments. And then I have the ability to view files. Later on, I'll be showing you how to set up the media library, which is a better option for viewing various types of media assets. Going through here, I have a lot of options, and if you read through this, this might be confusing to some because some of these options are very Drupal specific, and I'll be covering many of the popular ones here. Appearance is where we can select the theme to change the appearance of the website, both externally and internally for admins. We'll be covering appearance in another module where we can change, again, the outside experience aesthetics. I won't be diving into modifying the appearance of this dashboard. I use it most of the time. And then we have this extend option where we can go over modules to extend Drupal. This is similar to plugins that are used in other content management systems. And this is where I can utilize some of the existing ones that came with the Drupal core, as well as add additional ones that I can download from another resource. And again, extend the functionality of Drupal. Configuration will have many of the advanced options for configuring your site, the actual settings. You see a lot of options here. Most of these options are not used by most people. There's just a few that I'll be covering, which I use quite frequently. And then people is where you could administer the users, add, delete, modify users. And also one thing that's special about Drupal that I'll be covering is that you don't have to download a plugin to go into granular settings. If I click on here, you'll be able to see a lot of granular settings in Drupal. These types of settings don't exist in some of the popular content management systems. So that's a pretty awesome option, as well as the ability to administer different roles that you can view, edit, create. And then we have the ability to view reports. And then one of the easy ones that I use is status report. And you could just get some quick information about the site, such as the Drupal version that this system currently uses, as well as some PHP information and some warnings and all that. We also have other reports that you can see here. We have the ability to find out what are the top search phrases. There is no need to download a special module or plugin for that. And then we'll be covering more of these later on. But that is all for this lesson of going through the admin menus. In this lesson, I'll be covering changing the appearance of Drupal. And this is where we'll be going into themes, both external themes and administration themes. So to get to this, I clicked on this appearance link on the menu. And what we are going to go over are 3 different ways to change the look and feel of your site. The first way is to modify the existing default themes. The second option is to use a pre-built theme. And the third option is to outsource the theme to create a special look and feel just for you that is unique. So the first thing I'll be going over, something pretty simple. It's just changing the admin theme. So you can change the look and feel of how admins will see the site. So let's go ahead and just go to the bottom, and we have this option for administration theme, and then you can change it to another one. So if I click on Bartik, Bartik is actually the theme that we are using externally. I'll show you that very quick just by going to this back to site and right clicking, opening a new tab, and I could view this Bartik theme. So if I save this, the back end will change to the Bartik theme. And as you can see, there's some options on the sidebar here, and then things were rearranged here. Scrolling down, I can go back to the 7th theme to go back to what it was before. So now I have the ability to change the settings of my current theme. I previously played around with it and changed it to a custom setting here for the colors, but what I can do is go back to the default and then save that and then refresh the screen, and then you'll see the blue theme that it came with. But if I wanted to go to another one, let's say this gray one, and I wanted to make this darker, this is the header, the top portion, I can select a darker color if I wanted to. And then you can see the preview here. I can also make this part a little bit brighter. As you can see there, you can see the gradient. If I wanted to, I could also make it the same color so it looks like it's a flat color. So let's just go ahead and pick that for now and then save. And then when I reload my site, you'll see that it's different. So you might be wondering, how do I change this logo? You may not like that logo. So let's say that you click on Open Image in New Tab. This is the path on the server, and it goes to this SVG logo. And as you can see, it has a different color than what you see here. That's because it's a transparent image. This logo is also an SVG, which is vector. That means that you could change the height and width, scale it to a totally different size. You could even do it like 10 times the width if you wanted to, and the quality will be retained. So that's the beauty of using a vector image. And then we can go back here and look at the description, and it says that this logo is supplied by the theme. Unfortunately, there's no option here to easily click on a button to change the image. It really depends on the theme. The person or company that developed the theme will have different options. So let's go through global options here, this global settings. So this applies to all the themes. You'll see that there's also a logo image here, and then there's also a logo image under these theme specific settings. I typically try to change the settings in the theme specific settings, unless there's something in global settings that you can't find in the theme settings. But you can look through this, and there aren't that many options. So once you go through that, then you could start making changes in these specific settings here. So within Drupal, let's go ahead and click on Appearance again. There are other themes, and I don't like using them. This one is just kind of like a very plain theme. And if I wanted to install this theme, I can click on Install and Set as Default. That will activate it. And then if I refresh this, you can see that it's very plain. So this is okay to start off with if you are a themer. You're developing themes, but I would say it's easier to use a pre-built theme. Let's go ahead and go into pre-built themes. This is where you can easily get themes, whether they are for free or premium, where you're paying for them, and then you can change the look. And you can see there's a lot of cool themes here. This is my go-to place for the themes that I've used. I have used their bundle. As an agency owner, I'm able to build sites for unlimited clients and get this bundle at a very low cost, where I could get access to all their themes for $299 a year. I'm not here to pitch this, but I thought that's a pretty good option. And here there's like 42 existing themes, and those are all the premium ones, by the way. But to get to the free ones, I can click on themes, and then I can pick free. And this is where I have access to their light themes, the LITE light themes. And then I can view which ones I want to use and then use them in my current site. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick one, and I'm going to show you the difference between the free one and the premium one. So we're in the light version here, and what I've noticed with this site, their newer themes look better, and they also use a lot of images in their free versions. The older free versions, they don't include images, so they make them look very dull, and then they make the premium ones look pretty exciting with a bunch of imagery. So this is the free theme, and this is used mostly for, like, let's say hospitality businesses. And to me, it looks way better than the default Bartik theme. But I should tell you that a lot of these premium themes that are used in Drupal, they do require more advanced skills, and I'll show you what I mean, and I'll go over these step by step. So let's say I want to use this theme, and then if I want to learn more about the premium one, I can go to the plus one that does not have light in the name, and then you can see here that it looks very similar. So I can say that one of the biggest differences here is that the premium themes have more settings that require no code, so you can easily change the look and feel without doing any programming. So that's actually a very big deal. But this might seem like a very good option in the beginning for those that aren't familiar with developing code, but the thing is, with Drupal premium themes, there are so many radical differences when it comes to modules, which I'll be covering later, and then also something called views, which I'll be covering later. But the whole look and feel, it doesn't work out of the box. You can see a lot of options here, stuff that I won't go into much, but one thing that I need to tell you is that if you were to look at the theme documentation and look into how to install it, and I'll be covering that in this module, it does require you to install a full version of Drupal that was already put into this theme. So instead of just like installing a group of files, a package just for the theme, you're also reinstalling the whole Drupal package, which includes a fully loaded database and probably even an older version of Drupal than what's on your server. So that's actually pretty advanced, and there are different ways to install that if you don't want to load in an entire different version of Drupal. The thing is that many of these themes are very theme, or I should say Drupal version specific, not just major version like we're using version 8 here, but even some of these minor releases, some of them are tailored around that. So it's very tricky. So one of the things that I highly recommend is that you use your admin panel or whatever services you have within your hosting account and make sure that you back up your site before making any major changes on your site to change the appearance. Even though you're just installing a theme, I highly recommend that you have a backup that you can go back to through restoring if you need to. So that's something I highly recommend. So going through this appearance menu here, typically what I'll see is that there is going to be an option that says install new theme here, but it's not here. And that's possibly because there's a bug in this current version of Drupal that exists. Unfortunately, this is an open source system and it's developed by a lot of people throughout the world, and sometimes some bugs are introduced and then they'll be fixed in a later version. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do something that I'll go over in a later section, but just to fix that problem, I'm going to go to performance, and then I'm going to clear all caches, and I'll explain that again later on. And then I'll go ahead and go back to appearance, and then it's there. I've had to deal with that many times, so I know it's there. So now I can install a new theme. So how do I install a new theme? Okay, so first of all, go to the free version. Let's go to this guest house, and I'll go back to this light version, which is the free version. And then there's going to be a button called Get It. And this is where I can get access to this free download. So now I'm here on the Drupal site. You might have wondered, if you are familiar with Drupal, why didn't I go here first? It's because we're going to eventually go here. And then this is where you can get access to all of their free themes throughout the community here in Drupal. And if I'm on the main Drupal site, drupal.org, I can easily get to that page by going to Build and then Themes. There are other options here like modules. I'll be covering that later. But if I go into themes, I'll be able to search for themes that are specific to my version. So let's go ahead and go to Drupal 8. And then I also like to go through actively maintained. I don't want something that's just unsupported. I want to go through something and use options that are actively maintained. And I like using full projects. I don't like to go through betas or anything like that, things that are not fully complete. Of course, a lot of these are work in progress, but they are used in production environments mostly. So now I can click on search, and then I'll be able to look for a wide variety of free themes, and you can see which one's the most installed. So that's one way to search. I can also search by the creation date if I want to look for something that's relatively new. But what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to click on search themes in this field and then type in LITE, because that's a keyword that I know that More Than Themes uses a lot in their title, and I'll search. And then I'll find a whole bunch of different themes here, many that you've seen on the More Than Themes site, but I've stumbled into this one, Guest House Light. Going back to the page that I showed you earlier, I highly recommend reading this portion here and all the way to the download part. There's going to be some key information here that is specific to the theme that you download. And what I want to show you here is that there's a section that says how to reproduce our demo. Okay, so I'm going to go into the section here that's a bit advanced. I'm going to go into this after we install the theme. So going all the way down, I'm going to go into the version 8 download because I am using Drupal version 8, and that's the latest version. So what I want to do is right click on this tarball gzip. It's another version of a compressed file like zip, except it's mostly used on Linux systems. So I'm going to right click on that. I like to use the tarball and copy the link. And then I'll go to my Drupal appearance page, click on install new theme, and then paste a link here. It's just an easy way to install it versus choosing a file that you download. So instead of downloading the file into my C drive, I can go ahead and just put the URL there and then install. Okay, all that means is that it's been uploaded and uncompressed on my server. Then I need to activate it. So I'm going to click on this install newly added themes. Then I'm going to go all the way to the bottom, and then I see this Guest House Light. I'm going to install and set as default. Okay, there's some warnings here, but nothing for me to be worried about. And then I'll click on settings. And then I'll see a wide variety of settings for my theme. And as you can see, it's very different than Bartik because it is being offered by a premium theme provider. And then I'll go ahead and reload my website since I loaded in this new theme. I'll just click this home button. And then you can see that my theme has changed. Now you might be wondering, why doesn't it look like this demo here? I'll go into this demo. Why doesn't it look like this? And that's what I was telling you about earlier, that it's not that easy to get these settings unless you are a designer or a developer in Drupal, but I'm going to show you some easy ways to make the site look better. But even using this, it looks, in my opinion anyways, looks better than the default theme that was used when we first installed, called Bartik. And if I go into the settings here, the main one I use is look and feel, and that will allow me to change the colors. Let's go into purple and then save settings and reload the page. I'll just reload here. Now I have a purple site. And you can change it to any other color, but I'll go ahead and just pick blue. And then I'm going to pick this option here. This is a different option here where it adds a border. And then I'll save, and it'll be blue, and it'll be it'll include a border on the outside that you'll see soon. There you go. So that's just an easy way to change a theme, make it look cooler. And then also we can even start blogging if we wanted to. This has like a typical blog layout. We can remove this content here, this menu option, this block later on. I'll show you how to do that. And then I'm going to go over these other settings here. With the free version, if I wanted to change the slideshow, the top slider, which is this area here on the demo, it's going to be this big area here. Some people call it a jumbotron, a slider, header banner, or whatever. If I click on that, you'll see that they have this message meaning that you have to pay for it if you want to use those settings. So that's pretty much kind of like a freemium offer where they offer you the theme for free, and then if you want to upgrade and have more features, then you'll have the premium version. Same thing with a lot of these options here. But as I mentioned, even with the premium version, you have to go through some advanced options, and same thing with the free option. And I'm going to show you how to go through the setup so you can make it look like this free version here, because after all, you looked at this free demo here and you still might want to get it set up so it looks like this. And we'll go through that right now. So let's go back into this guest house light page at Drupal.org. You could also find the documentation on the More Than Theme site, but going through here, what you'll find is this link, and they'll lead you to GitHub. GitHub will offer you information on how to set it up to reproduce a demo. Click on that. And then you'll find some information to install it. And if you look at here at the bottom, they're giving you a totally new admin and password, username and password. And again, kind of going back to what I mentioned earlier, you have to pretty much reinstall Drupal just to get the theme to look like this. And that's very different than other content management systems. And one of the reasons being is that there is so much involved in changing the design in Drupal, because it's not just this overall design here. This happens in many other CMSs where you'll have to get something separate for this top part. You might have to do some custom design just to get these 4 columns in this layout, and then get these pictures in here. Even just to import these images and kind of put it in this format. In most content management systems, you're going to have to do some major work. The biggest difference with Drupal is that to make sure that you have everything that's compatible, to make sure that you have modules that will work properly with your premium theme or even this free theme, to make sure that you have certain layouts, how the pages are set up to look differently. For example, I have this home page here. If I go to articles, you'll see that it's laid out differently. And then also there are shortcodes that allow you to have just a totally different layout within the page. There are other ways to do this, but just to make sure that this is all in sync, what they do is they have you install the full version of Drupal or even modify the database. And so here it's saying that you're going to make sure that your database is empty. That's pretty much having a brand new site. And then you're going to go through the Drupal wizard, which I showed you in the installation lesson earlier on. And then you have to go through the whole process of setting up a standard installation using this new database. So again, it's a tedious process, and most people that are just starting off using Drupal aren't developers. They don't understand their way around the server and getting into the MySQL or MariaDB database. So if you are okay with the way that the theme looks, or you want to pick another theme that is pre-built, that's fine too. The other option that I mentioned is seeking a professional. If you do not know anything about code or servers, PHP, CSS, and JavaScript, and HTML, what you want to do is get professional help. And it's actually pretty easy. So if you go to More Than Themes, you can go to the contact form, and then they can be hired for some custom work. So this is one service that does it. There are many others out there, and one of the places that you can go to if you want to get a totally different look and feel than what's offered here is that you go to upwork.com. That's upwork.com. Before, many years ago, they were elance.com, if you ever heard that name, but now they're upwork.com. And you can find a whole bunch of people there. It's a marketplace, kind of like going to eBay, but just for services, especially technology services. And you just go ahead and put a listing there to hire somebody to help you out with your specific version of Drupal. And you'll want to make sure that you provide them as much information as possible, possibly even a mock-up, whether it's something that's cool that was created like in Adobe Photoshop or even GIMP, or even like a scan of a hand drawing is better than nothing. We've covered 3 different ways for changing the appearance of the site, whether it's changing the current settings, or using a pre-built theme that I showed you here at morethanthemes.com, or even hiring a themer that will create a custom theme for you, or even provide you with assistance to use a pre-built theme. And that's all for this lesson. In this training session, I'll be covering modules. Modules will allow us to extend the functionality of our site. And the first one I'm interested in is called media. And if I scroll down here, you see media. It says it manages the creation, configuration, display of media items. And then this is the media library, and this will allow us to use these media assets, these entities, through their library. So let's go ahead and talk about what this media library is first. Let's go into content, and then I have files that I previously uploaded. And the issue that I see here is that I see images, and then it doesn't allow me to easily edit these images. It doesn't allow me to easily delete them. And it creates this environment where it doesn't allow me to reuse these types of assets, whatever files that I upload. So there are different ways around this, but I'm going to show you the easiest way to get around this. And there is some configuration that's needed. I'll show you how to configure the various content types that we'll be using, as well as the related text editor. So first of all, just to give you some idea, which is going to be provided in the content section, I'll provide some more training on using articles and basic pages. But going into content, let's just create this test content using an article. And then I'll just call it test 1. Create some test content in my body. And then I'm able to use different text editors, and what I want to do here is just click on image, and then I can upload an image, but it does not allow me to choose from the images that I've previously uploaded. So in order to do that, I want to replace this section with the newer media module. It's been included in the core, I believe, since Drupal 8.4, and this will allow us to easily reuse media that we've uploaded. So let's go ahead and go to extend. I'm going to go ahead and enable this media module. I'm going to activate it, scroll all the way to the bottom, and click on install. And then I'm going to do the same thing for media library. I usually like to do this one at a time so I could see if there are any error messages or dependencies where other modules have to be installed that are required for it to work. And the way that I figure out if there are dependencies, typically I'll scroll down and then I'll click on this little arrow, and then it'll tell me what is required. It'll typically be in red text. So there is no red text here, so it looks okay to me. So if I go into article, if I reload that, nothing is going to change because I enabled something that hasn't been activated within this form. And this might seem like extra work, but this extra work allows us to use more functionality in the core of Drupal, and I'll show you how to configure a content type. So within structure, I have content types. And then what I'm interested in is adding and managing images through my article content. So I'll go ahead and manage fields here. And then what I want to do is I'm going to eventually want to replace this image with media. So let's go ahead and add a field. And then I'll select this media reference here and then call it media and save it. And then it allows me to add a certain number of media to that article. I'm going to show you how to add additional above what I set up here. So I'm just going to go ahead and just put 1 for now, and this can change depending on you. And then I'm going to go ahead and just save the settings here. And then it says media type is required. So one thing to note here is that anything with a red star is required. And then what's interesting is that once I go ahead and select what media types I can use, there are other areas of Drupal where I don't have to do that. It's just going to assume by default that I'm using all if I don't select any, and I'll show you that soon. So now I have it here below image, and then what I want to do is manage how it looks like in this admin form where I create articles and edit articles. And then if I go ahead and reload here, you'll see that media is now here, and then I have image here. But since this is a new site, I don't want to clutter my site with an image and media field since I'm going to be using media for images. So I want to remove this image field here, this old one, and then I'll go to manage form. So I'm editing the content type called article, and then I'm going to put the media field where image is at, and then I'm going to drag media, or image I should say, I'm going to drag image to disable. That's how I can hide that old field. So if I go back to the article and reload it, now I don't see image anymore, and that's what I wanted. So if I go into manage display, now I have to configure how this article will look to visitors. So if I go into content, I should go to article. Let me just add this test article, and then I'll go ahead and add media. I'll go ahead and add an image, choose an image. I'll pick this, call it living room 1 is going to be my alt tag. Save. And now I can select from here. And let's go ahead and insert selected and publish that. And now you can see that my media has been inserted, and it's inserted right below the body, but then it also has my media label here, which I don't want. So what I'm going to do is manage the display of this content type. So now I'm here in manage display, and what I want to do is get media and put it above my body of content. And then I want to take out that old image field and drag that down. And as you can see, the image field has a hidden label, and I'm taking note of that because that's what I want to do for media, to hide that media label. And it's also using a rendered entity. It's rendering the content. So let's go ahead and click on save, and then I'll reload my article, and you'll see that it is now above this test body, and it no longer has the media label. So that's a good thing. And then since I'm in here, I can do other things here. Let's see. Going into this article, if I edit it, if I want to use more media images in my article, like let's say I'm going to put section 2, then section 3, and then I want to enter in an image below section 2. This right here is where I want to make sure that this is set up properly. Now this has been previously set up by me, so one thing I want to show you is how I added this to my text editor. So let's go ahead and save that, and I'll show you the text editor options in case you do not see that option. So let's go to text format editors, and then if we go into basic HTML, this will allow us to edit the CK editor. It's called a WYSIWYG editor. I'll configure this, and then you can see here, this is my active toolbar and then my available buttons. My media library was not in here by default. I had added this previously, so it saved the previous settings.
So if I go ahead and drag this out, what it had before was this old media, this old image type here, this image field. So just to recreate that, I'll just go ahead and drag it out because I no longer want to use that old image field, and then I'll drag the image library in. And the way I know the difference is that if I just highlight over this, I'll say image, and this newer one is called insert from media library. I also want to make sure that embed is turned on. So I want to be able to embed the media into my post. And then I'll go ahead and save. And earlier I said that if this media type option menu comes out, there'll be another thing here that says if none are selected, all will be allowed. So I'll go ahead and allow all and then save. And then if we look at full HTML, then the old image option is still here. I want to drag this out. Let's put it into the available buttons, and then I'll drag in media library into the active toolbar so I can now use it in the full HTML editor. I'll make sure that embed media is turned on, and then I'll save and continue. So if I want to edit my content and then edit my article, then I'll be able to utilize this media library button, but also I can change it to full HTML. Again, a lot of the stuff with content will be in my content creation module, but now full HTML also has the ability to insert from the media library. So I have image turned on, and then I could go ahead and insert more images or add, and then I'll pick living room 2 here, and I'll put this living room to alt text. I'll save that, and then I can go ahead and add that to my content right here. And then if I click on edit media, I'll have more options. I can align it in the center, or I could even add in a caption. I'll go ahead and do that, and let's call it my second living room, and then save that. And now you can see that I have the centered image here, and then that is going to be how it's rendered in my content. So in this module, I showed you how to add this media library to replace the old image field, this file entity, and use this media entity and be able to reuse images that I have previously uploaded. I also showed you how to configure the content types in the text editor. The text editor allows me to configure this WYSIWYG editor, what you see is what you get editor, and then add the media library option in the toolbar. And this may seem like a lot of work, but you only have to do this once. And again, if all this configuration takes a lot of time in a second or third Drupal site, you can always clone your Drupal site so all these settings are already set up in your new sites. In this lesson, I'll be going over the very first SEO module. SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. It will allow us to modify our pages in a way that will allow us to be ranked in Google. So we appear in Google. Our goal is to rank in the top 10 listings, and even if we could go towards ranking number 1, position number 1, that would be awesome. But this is just one of the modules that I use to help me with that. So let's go ahead and talk about the meta tag module. Usually you'll see an option here for meta tags. I've previously uploaded it, but I'm going to show you how to install it yourself. So what we'll do is go to the extend page, and then we'll go into contributed modules and right click into that and then we'll search for meta tag here, and then we'll go into it and scroll down to this tar.gz link. It's a tarball, and right click on it, and then we're going to install the new module. We'll just paste a link here and then click on install. I've already done that, so I'm going to show you the next step. And what it does is it uploads it to the server, and then now we have to go to extend and enable it. This will activate the module, and this will perhaps give us a lesson on dependencies as well. So let's go ahead and go to meta tag. Let's go ahead and install that. And it says you must enable the token module to install. So what we can do is go back to the modules page and then search for token and install, and go through the same process where we go into the token page and we scroll down to our version of Drupal and then right click on the link, and then we could go ahead and install that module, but it's already installed. So just to show you again, if you click on install new module and then paste it here and then install, then you can install it. And then after that, you're going to go back to this extend page, and then you're going to go ahead and install token. That's the dependency. That's what it said it was required before installing meta tag. So we'll install token. And then I'm going to install the meta tag module. And then what I can do is look at the meta tag modules. There are multiple additional modules. And another module that I like to use is the Open Graph module. That allows us to put in meta tags for social media sites. And there are more too that you could explore. Go to install. And if you want to learn more, you could just go to the modules page for that specific module, such as meta tags. Let's put in meta tag. Then we can open that and read more about this. You can read this entire description to learn more about the available options and even instructions for utilizing the meta tag module. And this is very important because, again, with Drupal modules, it's not just about clicking on a checkbox and installing it. We have to configure it. So here we have this resources, full documentation. I'll look at the one for Drupal 8 and 9. And then it talks about the standard usage. And then it goes over how you can use it for your website, because you still have to configure it. There's some additional things, and we have a configuration. We can make sure that it is in this configuration search and then meta tag, and then we have to add it to our content types. So let's go ahead and then go to configuration, and then let's go to meta tag under search and metadata. And then what's important is we go through here, settings, we look at all this, and we want to make sure that we enable it in the type of entity type, such as a content type. We want to enable what, the certain entity type, or in this case the content type, where we'll use meta tags. So let's go ahead and just say all of this in article, and the same thing for page. And that's all for that. Those are the main options I use for that. And where I want to use those, I need to change the structure for those content types. Then for article, I want to make sure that I add the field for meta tags. So I'll select meta tags under general. I'll call it meta tags for the label and save it. And then what I want to do is I want to go ahead and go back into the article to manage the form. Now what I want to do is make sure that meta tags is there. It is there. And now let's see. I believe that's all. So let's just check here and edit article. I'll reload the page. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a meta tag here. And what I can do is that I can type the description here, and the description I typically use is 1 to 2 sentences that describe my content, and it should be 160 characters or less. So typically 1 or 2 sentences will do, and this is to briefly describe the content for visitors to know more about what you're offering, and this is going to be used in the search engines as well. So again, I can type it in here, but by default it will use my summary. So what I typically do is I'll usually click on edit summary and put in my description here. So this is a description about my test article, and then I'll go ahead and save it. And some people will use some keywords here, and what you can see here is that this tip here says this meta tag, this field, is no longer supported by most search engines. If you ever hire an SEO specialist and they say you need to put in these keywords here, 3 to 10 or whatever, separated by a comma, most likely they're following some old rules that used to work many years ago. So the description is still used, and then within this content, the on-page SEO is mostly just making sure that your content is highly relevant all over, including the title. So if you create a title and you have some certain themes within your content that are all related to that title, you'll have a good chance at ranking with some authority. There's some additional things you have to do. Not all content goes to #1 on Google. So let's save that. And then let's go ahead and click on test article. And then just to make sure, I'm just going to press Control U, which will allow me to see my code. And then I want to look for my meta tag. And then there it is. My description says, this is a description about my test article, and the search engines will utilize that, and that is very important. Okay, so that is the first module, and we can add that to basic pages if we want to rank basic pages, if that's what you want to do. For now, I'll just keep it in articles, and we'll go to the next module that will discuss more SEO. In this training lesson, I'll go over a module called Path Auto, and it will allow you to easily create auto-generated SEO-friendly URLs. And I typically use this URL alias field to customize my URLs, but in the case you want to auto-generate based on this title to create something like a permalink kind of function, then what I want to do is install Path Auto. So to do that, I'll go into Drupal's website, and then I'll go to Build to Modules. Then I'll type in Path Auto. And I will go into this page and go to the bottom to copy this link so I can install it. Go to Extend, click on Install New Module, and then paste the URL, click on Install. And then I'll enable it. And if I click on here, it'll say that something is missing, so I can't install it. I have to install something called CTools. So I'm going to search for that, go to Modules, go to CTools, and search for that. Okay, it's going to be this chaos tool suite. And then right click on this, copy the link. And my dream is that all of this will be automatically installed. So let's see. Yeah, chaos is not in this version of Drupal. Let's go ahead and install this here and then go from there. And then I'll enable CTools first. I just search for chaos and then I'll enable this. There's going to be some experimental modules. I typically try not to install anything experimental. If I do, I make sure that I back up everything first. Okay, now that chaos tools is installed, I'll go to Path Auto. And then now I'm able to install this. Okay, so now we have Path Auto installed. There's still some more work that's required to set this up. Let's go ahead and go to Configuration. And then if we go to URL aliases, if we go to the patterns here, now what we want to do is add our format of our URL using Path Auto so that the URLs that are generated are set up in a way that we desire for our website. To learn more about Path Auto, for most modules, I'll typically scan through the body here, but I don't see that much content on how to use it here. So in this documentation sidebar option, I'll go to external documentation, and then I'll see a lot of good information. And then you can read this whole article if you want, but what I'm going to do is go into patterns here. So what patterns does, it allows us to set up the URL format, and then I'll go from the beginning, going into configuration, going through this page, going through URL aliases, going to patterns, and then adding a pattern. And then what I want to do is create a pattern for my content. I'm not so concerned about non-content pages having search engine friendly URLs, but what I want to do is I want to create these permalink-like SEO friendly addresses, and I want it for both articles and basic pages. There have been situations in the past where I created patterns for these individual content types, but for the sake of simplicity, I'll just select both and then call this content Path Auto, or it could be called content patterns. It's just an identifier for yourself. And then I'll go ahead and create my pattern here. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that it's the shortest URL that is friendly. So I'll go ahead and click on Browse Available Tokens. I'll go ahead and go to Nodes. And what I want to do is use the title of the node, which I'll click on here. And then see this, put it in the last field I was in. So what I can do is click on this field here and then click on it, and then it will populate this field. Okay, so that's all I want. I wanted to just use the title and save. And so once this is saved, then what I can do is go back to content and then add my article and see how it works. Call it this silly title here, and then here's my take on this book. I'll just call it that. And then I can add a summary if I wanted to, but we're just showing a quick demo of how Path Auto works. Typically, without filling out anything else, it will create a URL that has node in the name and have a number after that. So let's save that. And now you can see it created my title, my URL, instantly based on my title. And it also omitted the special characters like a comma, which is a good thing, and replaced the spaces with dashes. So that's a good way to automatically create the URLs. And also an additional tip for SEO, I typically like to keep my URLs short and relevant. So if I had a 4-line title, I probably wouldn't use all of the words in the title. I just want to make it very punchy, very relevant. And I can do that by overriding the title, by not allowing it to auto-generate, and by changing my title here. So this generate, it will use path auto. If it's unchecked, it will be based on the URL that you use here, and then you can go ahead and save your changes. In this lesson, I'll cover taxonomy. It's a way to tag and categorize different entities within Drupal. And I say entities because it's not just about tagging articles or pages. You can use it for almost any type of content or media types that you put into Drupal. But what I'm going to go over here are just some basics. So with tags, of course, you can enter in this list where users can type in their keywords, their tags for articles. And then you can also create a structured list where people can select from a list. And in some content management systems, you might see this division between tags and categories. And categories can be very structured, tags can be very structured, and you could pick them in a variety of ways. So let's say with tags, if I go into content, and then I go into this financial article, which I'll edit, I can see that on the bottom of the form, this page here, I've entered my tags here. And I entered them, separating them with a comma. So if I go back to taxonomy, I can list what has been entered so far. And you'll see that. And I can edit those, or I can delete them. And editing might be important. Let's say that if you had a writer and you asked them to enter the tag in a specific case, like title case, and they didn't, then you can edit it just by clicking on this edit button here. And I can just edit the text here if I wanted to. But let's say that I wanted to create specific vocabulary that only applies to, let's say, book reviews. And I could call book review type. And then I could enter in my categories. And let's say that this one's just called health. Just make it simple. I'll save this. And then I can add another one for finance. And then if I go to taxonomy again, I have another list. It's different. So I can create more taxonomy if I wanted to. I can even create it for even geographical locations. It just depends on what type of content I'm offering. So for example, if I was to create a content type for events, like for a calendar, I can enter in a variety of venues. That could be a custom taxonomy that I can include. And then this is a very advanced way to create taxonomy because you can create different layers of taxonomy and create them in different types of content. And then if you want to learn how I go about doing this, you can check out the content type module, and I'll show you how I've included this taxonomy for book reviews. In this lesson, I'll be going over blocks, and this will allow you to create widgets for your site where you can place them in various areas, various regions based on your theme. So let's go ahead and go to structure, then block layout, and then I can see my regions here, and simply I just went to this link on the top that says demonstrate block regions, and as you can see here, it has my theme name because the block regions, how they're laid out and what you have access to, it's dependent on your theme. So let's go ahead and click on that. And then there are some areas that are hard to read, so I'll just press Control A to select all, and then I can see my text that's highlighted. And all the themes will have different regions, and for the most part, the typical design is that you'll have the header on the top, you'll have the footer at the very bottom, you'll have the content in the middle, and then you'll have this sidebar on the left. This is called sidebar first in this situation, and then on the right you have sidebar second, and then a whole bunch of other areas where you can add content into. And what we're going to do is play around with banners. So we have this banner here on the top, and let's go ahead and play with that. So what I want to do is create a custom block that allows me to put some custom code, whether it's HTML or JavaScript, just to put in a custom ad. So let's just say that I have some banner ad text, and then I'm going to go to custom block library and create this, and I'll just call it ad version 1. I'll just call it that. And then what I want to do is make sure that I put in full HTML. This will allow me to access more code, the ability to add non-basic code, whether it's CSS or even JavaScript. But I'm just going to enter this custom code that I created, and it's just to simulate a banner ad. I clicked on source here, and then it has some inline CSS, and then I'm going to save this, and I'm going to go to my block layout, and I'm going to place this in my banner section, and this is called ad version 1. And then I'm going to take out this title. I don't want ad version 1 to show up on my content, and I pretty much want to show it on all my pages, so I'm not going to put any filters here for visibility. I just wanted to show in this region called banner, and save it. And then I'll save the blocks on the bottom, and then I'm going to view my site here, and you see that it's here, and that's because of the way that it's designed. So what I can do is I can click on this to edit my code, and then look at the source, and then I realize that the width is kept at 250, let's say 100%, and then I'll view that. Now it's going to be wide, and then let's say that I want to make the height 150 pixels instead of 250, and make it narrow like that, and save it. So now you can see it's the full width here, and also if I edit it again, let's see here. Pretty much has all the options that I want. So this header part, it could be even like a hero shot if you wanted to, but it really depends on you. This is just an example of a banner I added. And then if I wanted to, I could even design it to add a button or even an opt-in form. But that's what it allows me to do. It allows me to add in some custom code to the top there, and I could put it in any region. So let's say that I want to configure this again, and instead of there, I want to change it to my sidebar second, which is my sidebar on the right side of my content. And let's say that I only want to show it on the front page. So if you read this description below, it'll say I can use this tag if I only want to show it on the front page, and I can put in this tag here called front and save that. And now you'll see that I have this here, it changed from the top banner, and I put it here. And let's say I want to go ahead and configure my block layout more. Let me refresh this page here with my block layouts, with my blocks. And then what I want to do is go back to sidebar second and then put my ad on top here. Then save. I just dragged and dropped the position. Then I'll reload, and now it's on the top of tools. And then let's say that this is an ad that I want to use on all my content pages. I can do that too. So I could even edit it here and say I don't want to put it on my sidebar. I want to put it at the bottom of my main page content and save that. So just to show you what I did, I just dragged it to this area below my main page content in this content section, and then I'll save it. And then if I go into my home page and refresh that, it's no longer on my sidebar. But if I go ahead and look at my content, let's go into this one, scroll down. It's not on this page because this is just the main page. If I go here, it's going to be on my main page content here. So let's go ahead and go to block layout. And let's say that I wanted to place it in the bottom. Actually, I meant to put it here on the bottom, content bottom. And again, if I don't know what the location is of these blocks, I can always go back to this block region demonstration, and then you'll see that block bottom or content bottom is here. And what I realized is that it didn't show up on the other content pages because I put a filter. So if I go ahead and configure my block and remove that filter I put on, that's called front, then I could just show it in my articles and click here. And then if I click on my articles, then it should show. Yeah, it's right here. And then let's say I want to configure it again. Then I want to put it where I wanted to test originally, which is in my content, but I want to rearrange it so I can change the order. Let's go into structure, block layout, and then put this add version into this area right below my main page layout, or content I should say. Click on save blocks, then view my site, my page here. Then I can see it here. It's right below my comment area here. So there are just different options. Again, it depends on the theme that you're using and the different regions of different themes. They're all going to be different. So you can always change it around and disable certain areas here. And let's say if I wanted to not show tools and I wanted to make it like a single page or single column page, I can go ahead and put this tools area into a hidden blocks collection. So tools is now hidden. I can save that. And now you won't see it on the sidebar here. And that's about it just for this quick demo, just going through how to use blocks in Drupal. In this lesson, I'll be covering content types as well as the basics of administering content on your site. So you can publish, search for content, delete content, and more. So here we have content types. I'm in the structure page right here that I access through this link. And then in content types, I have articles, basic pages. These are the two basic pages that are available through just the plain vanilla Drupal installation through the core. And you can add more as well. And that's what's special about Drupal. If I wanted a special content type for a specific use case, I can add that. There are no additional modules needed. And articles are for time-sensitive content, while basic pages are mostly for static pages such as our About Us page, and legal pages like disclaimers and privacy policies, terms of use, and those other types of pages. So let's go ahead and talk about the contact form too, because contact form sometimes can be a page in another content management system. But if we look at structure, we see that contact forms is available. And the cool thing about Drupal is that there's no need, again, to install another module. It's built into the core. So if I was to access that, I can see the options to actually go to my contact form. That's very easy, but for this module, I'll cover content. And content will allow us to search for articles. I can type in a title to search for a keyword. I can search for different types of content types to filter it more. And then also if it's published or unpublished. This is very useful if you're using workflow or if you're using a specific workflow module, and that will allow us to go through a moderation process where, let's say, junior writers or people in different roles can create content and save them as drafts, and then we can go ahead and publish them as editors or administrators. But this is just a way to search for content here. Once you click on filter, you'll be able to find your content below here. We also have the ability to approve and unapprove comments, view files, and media. This is something that I showed you in the media module, but what I'll do here is I'll just show you how to delete here. You can have some bulk options here, but let's see if I want to delete this picture, I can go ahead and do that. And that's how I use that. So bulk options are in many views in Drupal. And I'll just show you how to create content here. I'm going to create, let's see, I'm going to put my privacy policy here. And then I'll just put some content. I'll just put that here. I'm not going to type a whole body of content here. And then I'll just go ahead and click on publish. I'll go ahead and create another piece of content that's called About Us. This is just going to provide our basic structure here. Okay, then I'm going to create an article here. And I'll just call this article 2, and then this is going to be my content. And then if I wanted to, I can add the headers here like H2. These are very important, especially when it comes to segregating the content and making it more user friendly. It improves the experience, but it's also a good thing for search engine optimization. So I typically like to start off with these H2s, heading 2s. Then I may add more content, and then if I have a subheader for this content, then I can add an H3. So as you can see, it's smaller. And then if I wanted to add something more custom, let me just go ahead and copy this. If I wanted to add more content here, like let's say CSS, I can do that using full. And this is where I can actually add some additional code if I wanted to, and then tag it. And so like let's say article 2, I could say this is about investing in stocks, retirement, and 401k. Let's just call it, let's say it's that, and I'll call this financial article. one. And then I can add a summary here. This is say I'm going to provide you with my personal experience regarding investing in a 401k for the very first time. And then I can add a picture if I wanted to. And let's say that I had some financial picture here. I'll just use this as a placeholder and then put in this alt text green box. And then add that to my article and then publish it. Okay, that's how it would look with my content below the picture. And if I wanted to change that up a bit, I can change the URL to make it a very custom URL. And then save that. And if I don't select generate, then it will use this URL that I type in there. Then I'll save that. Looking at this, the thing I don't like is showing a name and date here. It depends on you. It really depends on the structure of your website. But for this case, I'll just go ahead and edit the content type for my articles, and then manage the way that it's shown on my website. Actually, I could just go to edit and then disable this author and date information. Some people like to do that. It just depends on your site. And there it is. I removed the author display there. If I go to home, then I could see that. And then if I go here, view the URL, I can see my custom URL text that I added here. And so that was just a little demo of how to create content and how to show this later little teaser content in the summary. And it's also used for my meta tag description as well.
In this lesson, I'll be going over this shortcuts menu option here. Right now it has this option to add content. So if I were to click on that, then it'll take me to this area within my admin panel to add content. But if I want to add articles, and that's my task that I do regularly, then I'm going to add a shortcut. And then I can put this text called add articles. And then I can go ahead and put my relative URL here and then save it. So just to show you quickly how I did that again is that I went into the specific page that I want to create a shortcut for. And then when I mentioned relative URL, it's pretty much anything right here, this part of the URL that is after the main domain name, and it starts with a / and I can copy that and use that as a shortcut URL. So now what I want to do is go into configuration and then create another shortcut for something that I use a lot, which is to clear my cache. This cache setting is quite useful, especially to boost performance on sites that typically have traffic on a live site. I usually like to add 15 minutes or more. That's my typical preference. And sometimes one day, if it's a site that's not updated that often, then I can do that setting. But let's say that I want to go ahead and add that setting that I use for my live sites and save that setting. But then I want to go ahead and clear this cache, because if I'm doing a lot of design work, then I want to be able to make sure that the site represents my latest changes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this relative URL here,
go back into shortcuts, go to edit shortcuts by clicking on this link on the far right, and then I'll add another one. And then I'll call this clear cache and save that setting. And that's all for creating shortcuts. In this lesson, I'll cover custom content types. So if I go into the content types area here, I can create one. And let's say that I want to create one that's specifically for book reviews. I can go ahead and enter book reviews. And then I can select my specific options here. Let's say that I don't want to publish it to the front page. And let's say that this book review does not contain the author of the page, not the book, but the author of the page. And then I don't want it to appear in any menu. Let's save and manage that. Okay, now I have this custom content type. And what's missing for me is some of the pre-existing fields. So I'll go ahead and add my meta tags for SEO. I'll go ahead and add other ones such as my media. I want to be able to put in a media part on the top of my body of my content. And then here, since it's required, I'll have to select whatever I want to add. And then let's see what else is here. If I wanted to add comments, I could do that. And one thing that I want to include here is something that I created back in the taxonomy module, which is going to be here. Let's see. It's going to be a taxonomy term, and then I'll call this book reviews, book review type. Okay, let's just make sure that I have everything. And I believe that's it. Let's go ahead and get started with that. I'll just make sure that that's only one. And then here's the vocabulary that I want to include. And I'll save that. Okay, so when I edit my book review, I want to make sure that my media is going to be shown right here. Then I want to put my body up there as well. Then I want to put my book review type there. And then I'll save that. There's something else that I wanted to add, which is a text field. I'll put just a plain text field, and then that's going to be my book author. And then if I look at my book reviews content type, I want to go ahead and make sure that the book author is shown here. I want to put it right below my body. And then what I'll have to do is change how it shows up on my web page that will show to my visitors, which is through Manage Display. I'll go ahead and put book author right below body, and then this book review type, I'm not going to show that. I'm going to hide that. And then tags, it's up to you if you want to show that. I want my media to show up above my body. I don't really care about showing this links here. I'll disable that. And then with media, I want to make sure that I disable the label that's going to be for the picture. I don't want it to show media on the top. And I don't want to show the label. I want to actually render it so it actually displays my media, which is my picture. And then I want to make sure that I show my body, which is my text content. And then want to make sure that the book author is displayed in plain text. Meta tags, that's not going to show on my page in the actual view. It'll show up in my meta tag section within the code. And then let's go ahead and save this. I have additional options here where I can configure this view for teasers if I wanted to. I can make sure that my media shows up in my teaser section. This is for quick summaries that are listed somewhere on my website. And then we could just show that. I'll take out links and I'll show the body, but it'll be the summary version, summary or trimmed. And then that'll be it. I'll save that. That's for the teasers. That's a short version of my content, which will typically show, like, let's say in search results or in a category page, something like that, or even the home page if I allowed it to show on the home page. But I believe that's it. And then I'll go ahead and start entering some content. And then it will be for my book review. And then, as you can see here, there's something that I didn't select, which will allow me to add media easily. So let's go ahead and go back to the content types. And then I have to edit the way that the form is displayed to me. And instead of doing this autocomplete, I wanted to use the media library. And then let's see here. That's correct. Text field is correct. And book review type. I don't want to type. Autocomplete is typically typing and then it'll search for a potential option. What I want to do is I'll just use a checkbox or a radio box and click on save. So now if I go ahead and go to content and then add my new book review, I now have this option. So I'll go ahead and put this book review, a spin on a popular book title. I'll go ahead and click this. And in this case, of course, I'd want to put in a picture for my cover of my book, but that exists. Let me go and pick another one. Cannot be uploaded, only files with extension. Oh, that's because I'm in audio. Let's go ahead and pick this again. And then I'll just call it blue box. But in reality, if I'm doing a book review, again, I want to pick a book cover or the author's picture. And then I'll put my book review content here. Then I'll put my summary here. Here's a story about a young dad learning his powerful financial secrets from his 10-year-old son. Let's do that. And then I'll go ahead and put the author. And this depends on you. I just did it this way because I could sort by last name if I decide to create a view that will sort by that name. And then my book review type, I said I want to use a radio or checkbox. So now I have that option. So this is taxonomy. I'm just changing the way that I enter taxonomy. There was also another option to select it from a list. So that's another option for taxonomy. And then I'll go ahead and save it. And if I edit this, one of the things that I notice is that it created a node. And that's because I created a custom content type, but I did not configure the URL aliases. So if I go to patterns and go to this content path auto, I have to edit that, because when I set that up originally, I only included article and basic page. Now that I have a new content type, I should include that. So let's go ahead and save that. And then go back to my content, go back into this review, I'll edit it, and then make sure that it generates an automatic URL and save, if that's what I want to do. And then if I click on this, you can see that it now has the proper URL structure. So that is my first financial book review, and I still have to edit this content type because it shows body. I don't want to show body on top of my content. So what I'm going to do is go back into my content types, just things that you discover along the way, and then go back into my manage display, and I'm not going to show the label for my body. I think this was already hidden in the beginning, but I added it by accident. And then one of the things that I saw was when I go into content types, it doesn't have a description here. And then I'll just say here in the edit tab of my content types, I'm just going to say, and this is more of a message for my writers, enter all book reviews using this content type. And then I'll save. And now let's see my content here. I'm going to display it again. And now we finally have the content here without the label. We have the book author here, so visitors know that that's the author of the book. You can call it whatever label you want, but that is just a quick example of how to use the new taxonomy and also the custom content type for book reviews. In this lesson, I'll be covering views, and these are dynamic lists. So if I go into structure, scroll down, and I'll say this is how you manage customized lists of content. And when I say dynamic list, it's pretty much retrieving the information from Drupal's database. And if you see this is actually a list of content in this view structure. So this is pretty much what you'll be using to administer even the views within Drupal. So I have this files list, and then I have this list for media. And if I wanted to, if we wanted to use this style here where we can see thumbnails in files, I can actually configure the files view to actually display the images if I wanted to. But since I'm using media now, that's not a concern. But let's say that I wanted to add my reviews, and then let's say I want to add my book reviews to my site, and I want to create a list of those, but I want to put it in my sidebar. So I'm going to say I want to put it in, I want to show my book reviews here, and then I'm going to sort it newest first, and then I'm going to create a block. If I wanted to create a page of that, I can do that using this option, but I'm going to create a block because I want to put this list of book reviews in my sidebar and auto-populate. And I'm going to show the items here, just 5 per block, and then once it goes past 5, then it will have arrows to navigate on the bottom of that list. So I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll show my titles here and save. So now I have this book reviews block. I can go ahead and go into structure here, then I can go to block layout, then I can go to my sidebar second. That's my sidebar on the right side of my content. And then I can add book reviews and show that on my article pages, and then save the block. And now it's here. And if I want to put it on the top of my sidebar, I can do that. And then I can go ahead and save. Now if I go to my website and look at any of these articles, I'll see that I have my book reviews here. This is in this test article. And then if I go into my financial article, I'll see the book reviews here. Now the next step is figuring out a way to only show financial books in my financial articles and not the other articles. So if that test article was a health article, I wouldn't want to show my financial books there. So the way I'll do that is I'll edit the view. So this is the last state after I saved the initial book reviews view. And if I go to this area here, I'm able to change the query by editing the filter criteria. And right now it's showing all content that's published and all content that has book reviews. So again, if I go to my website and I go to test article, let's say test article is a health article, I don't want to show this here. So the way I do that, there's different ways to do this, but what I'm going to do is I want to go ahead and add some other criteria and then look at taxonomy. I'll configure that, and this is going to be based on, let's just use that for default, and then it's going to be based on this book reviews type, and then I'll use a drop down and then apply, and then I'll say I only want to show this view where it is finance only, and then I'll apply and save it. And now if you look at the bottom, it'll show a preview of my query. And so just to show you an example of how this works, I'm going to add another piece of content, and then I'm going to call it, I'll just call it health book. Health book review, I'll just call it food and my mood version 1. And then I'll say that's a health review, put my health book content, and then this is by Charles Grace, and again the health option is selected here. And if I look at this, let's see, let me go back to that content type again. Going back to this book reviews content type, I'll see that it will only show this piece of content and not that new health one that I have. So now, since I changed this, I'll want to call this financial book reviews, because now it's not just about all of my reviews, it's only about financial books. And then I'll look at my block options here. Let's see what blocks I have now. Actually, it's a view that was created by the block. So let's go ahead and go to this right here, and it's still showing here. So the way that I configure this so it only shows under my financial articles, I can go ahead and go to configure block, and then I can do it in certain ways, but let's say that I only want to show it in articles, and then I only want to show it on my articles that start with finance, and then I'll put a star after that. Okay, so one thing that I need to discuss is that structure. I said I want to show that menu in only articles that have finance. So this is where URL structure is very important. Some people will use path auto all of the time, and I personally don't use it all of the time. And I will show you why. It's because this article here, unless I create a specific type of URL structure to only apply it to financial articles, then that's something different. But what I want to do is show you how I create a virtual folder. So let's say that this article is going to be about my 401k. I don't want this to start off with financial. Let's say that I just want to call it about my 401k. But in order to apply a page URL or article URL filter to it, where I only show a financial book review on that type of article, I want to create a virtual folder, and I'll call this finance. So you have to think about your structure ahead of time, because it really is important if you're filtering by the URL. So now my articles that have a finance theme will start with finance. All of my health articles can start off with health. So that's something that you need to think about early on. So let's go ahead and do save. And then let's go ahead and change this health one, food, and my mood version 1. Again, turn off the path auto, and then I'll put health right here. So now I'm using virtual folders. And I'll go back to site. And now if I go to all about my 401k, I'll see my financial book reviews here. If I go into this book review, it will not show because I didn't include finance in the URL. And then if I go to my article about food and my mood, that's actually a book review. So of course it wouldn't show there. But let's say that I have this test article here. It's using the article content type, and then I'll just call this health article 1, and then I'll change the URL alias to start with health. It's called health article 1. So there's some manual effort in creating a custom URL alias to filter content. But if you get used to this process, then it'll be just a habit. So if I go into here, this health article 1, again, it will not show here. So as you remember, I added another type of book review, and I can add a view for that. So let's create a view for health articles. And if I want to make sure that it's consistent, it was called health book reviews, I'll do that. Then I want to only show content that is a type called book reviews, and I'll create a block called health book reviews, and then I'll use a pager to make sure that people can see more than 5 book reviews. And then I'll go ahead and add another filter here, filter criteria using taxonomy, and then I'll go ahead and make sure that I use a book review type taxonomy, and only pick health book reviews, and that's all. And I'll save that. So to verify that that view worked and queried the correct book reviews, I just scroll down and you'll see that I have this book review here. And then I can go to my home page and look at this health article, and there's nothing here. So now I'll go to structure and block layout, and then I'll go ahead and go to sidebar second and place another book review here. Actually, it's going to be different. It's going to be the health book reviews. And then I'll go ahead and make sure this only shows on pages that start with health, and I'll put a star to show any article that starts with health. with that virtual folder and save that. And now we have these two different book reviews here, and then I can go ahead and save, and then I can view my site. If I view my health articles, I'll now have health book reviews here. Then if I go into my financial article, I can now see my financial book reviews here, and that pretty much gives you an idea of how to use views and how to query different types of data, whether it's looking for all book reviews. We actually created that filter for content types, and then we added another filter to search for taxonomy, which was the book type review, whether it was health or finance, in addition to that content type of book reviews. And so that's how you could create a query using views. And then I also showed you how to filter different blocks based on the URL structure using virtual folders within your URL. And again, that does not use Path Auto. So that is all for this demo.
In this lesson, I'll be covering the CSS editor module. This will allow you to utilize CSS on your website very easily. So going into the Drupal.org site, I'll go to modules, and then I'll just type in CSS editor and search for that. And here it is. It's by InfoJunkie. Then I'll scroll down to the one that's made for my version of Drupal, and I'll right click on this tar gz link, go into Drupal, then I'll install this module. It's right here. I'll go ahead and enable it. Okay, it's installed now. I can go into Appearance and then view the settings in my theme. And now I'll have this area which allows me to add CSS to my website, and it's pretty cool. I can test some different types of CSS settings site-wide, and I could either enable it or disable it. In this lesson, I'll show you how to create a hero banner which will allow me to promote a page, whether that's on my site or somewhere else. And I'll only show this on my home page. I can show it on all pages if I wanted to, but for this example, I'll show you how to filter pages. So it'll be in this region here. This is the banner region, and I'll show you how I can locate that and then add the banner. So let's go ahead and go to Structure, then go to Block Layout, and then go to this link, Demonstrate Block Regions for my specific theme. And then if I press Control A, I can highlight the text just to show the different regions here, and you'll see this banner region right here. And you'll also see some spacing, some padding on the left and right side of it. But what I want to do is make it stretch all the way out to the left and right side of the page. So let's go ahead and create a custom block which is going to contain my code for my call to action and my headline. So let's go ahead and just call this heading or header banner 1. If I wanted to create multiple versions, I can do that. And I have some code here, and what I have here is my first class here that's called header banner 1, and then I have my class for my button, my link here, and right now it's just going to Bing, but let's go ahead and just copy that and paste it into my source here. One thing is that I have to use full HTML because I have CSS in it, so let's go ahead and do that. So I change this text format to full HTML. I'm going to save this, and now I have this reusable block, but I'm just going to put it in my banner region here, and I'll place that block that I just created in it. And then I'm going to create a filter which only will show on the front page as shown here. You'll see front is front page, so I'm going to use that front tag, and this is a Drupal specific tag. And then I'm going to go ahead and take out this display title because I don't want to show this on my banner, and I'll save that block.
Then I'll click Save on the bottom, Save Blocks. Then I'll view my site. So now I have this banner text here, and I'm going to style this region to make it look better. And then if I reload my CSS editor by accessing my theme, I'm going to go to Settings, go to my theme settings, and let me just reload this page. And then go into my custom CSS editor here using, again, the CSS editor module. And then I'm going to style this. There is this auto preview here. It works most of the time. There's some code that it doesn't work with, but I'm going to go ahead and use my class here, which is called header banner 1, and then I'll add the opening and closing bracket. Then I have one called banner CTA, call to action, and I'll do this here. And then what I want to do is that I want to align my text in the center, and you can see it's centered there. And then what I want to do, let's see if this works. No, oh, it's going to be the width. I'm going to change the width for this whole div to be 100%. And then do height of 250 pixels. And then I'm going to go ahead and make sure this banner is going to have a background color black for now, and then it's going to have text color of white. Let's do that for now. And then another thing that I want to do is make sure that it has some alignment vertically, and I'll make it, I'll put it in the middle. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll save and then just view it on the site. Okay, we can see so far that there's this space here, and first I want to go ahead and get rid of that. So let me go ahead and right click here, I'll inspect, and then I'll try to locate that in my code here. And what it says here, just going through this code, just clicking on the elements, what I'm thinking is that it's going to be in this banner code here, this banner section, but it's going to be this parent div here, and I can see it has this kind of formatting here, this MD12. What I'm going to do is copy. I did a right click, and then I'm going to copy the selector. And you have to be very careful with this because this selector can be used in other pages. And for me, I'm just going to make sure that I review my pages to make sure it doesn't impact anything else. But for now, I think it's okay to do this. Do an opening and a closing bracket. And then I'm going to put padding. I'll let you preview it by scrolling down a little bit. I'm going to put padding left 0px, and then I'm going to put padding right 0px. So you can see that now the banner stretches out to the left and right side of the web page, and now I have to figure out how to center this text, and I'll go ahead and do that. I'll save the settings first. Okay, let me look at my code again to see what I'm missing. Okay, I think I know what I'm missing. I forgot to make sure I set this display to table, and now it's centered. But now this white text here, it's just too small for what I want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. I'll go ahead and go into the website. I'll close this out and then reload. And then I'm going to go ahead and edit the code. And then I can make it bigger and bolder. I can do this if I wanted to. And then I can add this heading right here. But what I want to make sure is that this heading does not go on my hyperlink here, because I'm going to change that to a button. I'm just going to put that around the text, this H2 tag, and then I'll save that. Okay, and my learn more's right here. It's all because of this p tag that I used to have. Let's see here. What I'm going to do is separate my H2, and then I'll call this another div tag, and then make sure my H2's on the inside. This is kind of like more advanced stuff here. And then I'm going to go ahead and make sure that's okay. Let's go ahead and view it. Okay, that might be okay. Let's just go ahead and save and see how it looks. Okay, now we have this blue texture, and going back, let's see if I set a color. There's no color. It's probably the CSS, so I'll go ahead and go back to that. Go into my CSS, look at my color. Okay, so that parent banner is okay. Color is white. Let me go ahead and put one for my text here. Let's reload this just to make sure before I mess around with it. Okay, this text is blue, and it's probably because this theme, it's probably because the theme is using blue. So let me override that, and I'm going to only override it for this banner. So I can go ahead and just show you how to easily find the selector for that again. I can go into this text and do a copy, and then copy the selector, and I'll just put it right here. And then I'll make sure that it is white. And then if I want to make sure to really override it, I'll use this exclamation point and important. And let's go ahead and save that. And then I'll reload it. Okay, there. We have this hyperlink, and the issue here is that I think a button looks better. So a website I go to is called cssbuttongenerator.com. If you are familiar with making buttons, you could always, of course, style it yourself, but I'm just going to show you how I can easily do this. And I'm going to pick something that looks like this, just an orange button, just an attention grabber. And then I'm going to make sure that I don't have a radius, and change this to 0 here. And then I'm going to go ahead and call the class name button CTA, and then I'm going to put learn more as my text. So the thing is, if I look here, I have this button code. I've already added it, and my class is called button CTA, so there's not much I have to do here. It's just this CSS code here that I have to copy. I'll copy this, I'll put it into a notepad. Go ahead and do this. And then the reason why I put it in Notepad is to delete my style sheet here, that starting style sheet tag, and then I'll go all the way down and remove this closing style tag. So now I just have this CSS. I'm going to copy everything, and then I'm going to put it into my CSS editor here. In between this, actually that's already in the code, so let me wipe that out and just insert it. I'll do a Control V and paste it, and that's all from my notepad, and I got all of this from this CSS button generator. And let's save it to see how it looks. You can see a preview there. Save that. And then I have my banner here, and I can also use an image. I can go to pixabay.com and get an image for the background if I want to. I can also add some padding below this button if I wanted to. Let's go ahead and go to this banner, and just to show preview, and then I want to add, let's just call it, see if there's anything with a margin here for the button. I don't see anything, so I'm going to go ahead and add a margin bottom. And then let me just show you how it looks right now in this bottom preview. You can see it here. I'm just going to add this one here. And you can see it added some space here. And if I wanted to add more, I could just go ahead and roughly estimate that if I wanted to. And then I'll save that. And we talked about adding an image. I'll show you how to do that quick. Let's just show you how it looks like here. So that looks good. But now I want to use an image. And then what I can do is I can go into my media content and then look for an image or upload a new image. Again, Pixabay is a good source. And then I can go ahead and pick any image that I want here. Let's just say that I wanted to use this right here, this emerald one. And I know it's not the right color, but this is just a quick demo and I'll probably switch out of it. But let's go ahead and just copy this link here, this image, and I can make sure that I have the right link by looking at the status bar and it shows PNG on the bottom. Or I could open it in a new tab and then grab this and use the full URL or even a relative one. So I could get the relative URL, anything after the domain name, and then start out with a /. And then I can go back to my header banner code and then add a background image. Put that like that, and that's it. So now you can see the background image there. To me, that's not a good color combination. And so if I view my main site here, that's just to show you how I can add an image in the background if I wanted to. Or I can go back to colorpicker.com and it'll redirect here, webfx.com, and then I could pick whatever color that I want here. And then let's say if I want to use this color, I'll copy this hex code, and then I'll change this background image. I'll remove it, and then I'll change it to that hex color that I just copied under background-color. And there it is. So that's the background color of my header. And then if I save it, now I have that background color there. And then going back to my website, I'll go ahead and refresh. There you go. And I can again change this button to go to another website. If I click on it, it goes to the URL that I assigned. If I have a newsletter, like a lead capture page, I can send traffic using this call to action. And if I go into other articles, I can see that it's not there. And just to show you just briefly, right now there's this footer. And then what I can do, if I just use that as a generic banner that I wanted to put in other places, I can use block layout and reuse it if I wanted to. So I have my content here. Going back into my regions, I can see other areas where I can potentially add it. And let's say that I wanted to put it right here, sub-featured, and then I'll go ahead and exit this block region demonstration. And then use sub-featured, and I know I called it header banner, but if I wanted to put in footer, I probably wouldn't have called it header banner. But just to show you how that works, I can place the block there, and then I can say I only want to show it on article pages only, and then save that block. And also I want to make sure that I configure it here and don't show this display title. So let's go ahead and view the site. I'll go ahead and reload here, and then you'll see it here. And I still have to style it. I'd have to style it for this purpose, and then also style the text here. And let's go ahead and do that just real quickly, just to show you how to do this as a secondary banner. Again, I would go ahead and copy the element, go back into my appearance, going into the settings of my theme, and then I'll just put this new one here. I actually did the wrong one. Let me go ahead and copy, going back to that banner on the bottom. Let's go ahead and click on this. And I can see some things are kind of off here because of the way I styled it. Again, you want to be very careful, and then copy the selector. And the more you experiment with your theme like this, the more you'll find out what you should and shouldn't do. And then also I wanted to make sure that I look at my padding here to see what is actually controlling the overall padding. And it's going to be this one here. And then I'm going to copy this selector, and then I'm going to go ahead and modify the padding just like I did with the header, the first one. I'll go ahead and do padding left 0px, padding right 0px, and then I'll save that. And the more complex you make your design, there's going to be a lot more elements, and of course, designing it's going to be more complicated. So right now I'm using my banner on my home page, and then if I go into individual articles, it's not on the header, but now it's going to be on the footer. So this was a very quick demo just to show you how to use blocks, how to style these banners using the CSS editor in Drupal, and also how to reuse them and then style them again. In this lesson, I'll cover submenus, and so right now we're just using a single level menu here. I personally like these types of menus because they're easier to navigate in a mobile device. So if you have a small screen, you don't want to provide too many options and make navigation tough. And there are ways to make different versions for different devices, but to keep it simple, I typically use this type of menu. But if you want to add that functionality, you can go to Drupal.org, and you'll be able to add a module by clicking on modules under build. And then we want to go ahead and select the version of Drupal that we're using, and then type in Superfish. And then as you can see here, Superfish gives you the ability to add these mega menus or submenus. Again, these mega menus are multi-column submenus. It just depends on what you want to use. And there are a lot of instructions here. You'll have to go through their requirements because you'll have to install the library. And then if you want to view more in-depth documentation, they have it here as well. But again, if you want to use this, that's fine. It is an option that you have access to, and you'll want to go through the complete information on how you can install it within your website to add a submenu feature. In this lesson, I'll be covering the Gutenberg editor. Some people don't like the default editor within Drupal, and I personally like it myself, the actual default editor, because it allows me to add content very easily. But if you want to lay out your content for a specific landing page and have this grid system where you're able to create rows and sections and split columns, you can do that using Gutenberg. And it's as simple as adding Gutenberg for your version of Drupal and then enabling it. And that's all. We've gone through different videos on how to install modules, so you should have that idea here just by going down to the bottom here and then getting this tarball.gz link. And I personally do not use the betas. I don't like using experimental code unless I'm just testing something on a development environment that I can just go ahead and delete with no issues. And as you can see here, you have this system where you can add a variety of blocks into your page very easily. And there are different ways to do this in Drupal. There was one called Cohesion. Cohesion was a very popular way to edit content, and now Acquia has that. They call it Site Studio, and they allow you to reuse components and add content. And this is just an alternative that you can use, and it is free to use. And I advise you to check out the content here because there's a lot of great content. And I typically just install the Gutenberg editor. You'll find that when you install Gutenberg, let's see if I have it here. If not, we can just go through it quickly. Go to extend, and I'll just do a search for Gutenberg. It's not in this version, but let's go ahead and just install it quickly just to give you an idea of how it's used. Copy the link, and then I'll go into this to install a new module, paste it, and then after this I'll want to enable it, and then I'll do a search for Gutenberg again, and then I'll typically just use this editor. There are other options to have your library of blocks in the cloud, but I'll just use the editor, install that. And then I have to make sure that I enable it. So if you go into the Drupal documentation here for Gutenberg, let's see here, we have this tutorial on installing it. And I believe one of the things that I have to do, I have to activate it within the content type. So without going through documentation, I'll just go from my memory and go to structure and go to content types, and then edit the type of content type I want to apply to. Let's say to articles, I'll do this. I'll click on manage fields, then I'll click edit here, and then I go to the bottom here, Gutenberg experience, and then I'll enable that, and then I'll just pick save content type, and then I'll just go through a quick walkthrough of adding content. I'll create an article. That's the content type that I added it to. And then if I create a new article, you'll notice that it looks very different now. And then I can add my title on this right side here. I called it Gutenberg test content. And then I can go ahead and add different things here. I'll go to common blocks, look at those. I can lay it out and add columns. So let's say that I want to add 3 columns here, and then this is where I can actually add like a picture from my media here. Then I'll click on media library, I'll add this image here, and then let's say that I want to add another image here, and I'll add media. I'll type in media here, add that because it's coming from my media library, and then I'll put this Northern Lights picture here, and then here I can say that I just want to add a paragraph of text, and this is just a test, and then I'll save it, and then you see it here. So as you can see, it was able to easily create this 3-column layout where I added 2 images and some text. So this is a quick demo on how you can use Gutenberg. It's very popular. especially in WordPress. It's the default editor, but it's something that you can apply to Drupal as well to easily change the layout of your article pages and other content types if you wish. In this training, I'll be showing you some features within the Pantheon dashboard. So I'm going to go into this sandbox site. This is my development site that I've been working on. And then I have the ability to go to database files, and then I can clone my site if I wanted to. And I think this is a good idea if you're making multiple sites and there's a lot of work that you've done in the past and you want to be able to clone those settings. So I think that's a good idea if you want to clone. And then I want to go ahead and export my database, and then I'll go ahead and export it. You can see that it's processing it, and then I can also create an export of my static files as well. And then I can save my database by clicking on this link here, and then I can do a direct download, and then I can save it into my folder. So let's just go ahead and put it into my temp folder. I'll create a new one here. I'll just put it in this folder. I don't use it for much, so I'll just save it there. And I'll save my files as well. Okay, now I have my site backed up. There's also this setting here for backups, and as you can see, I can actually back up this environment here and choose to keep it for a certain length of time. So let's go ahead and go through that process just by clicking on create new backup. If I want to keep it for a different duration, I can choose that as well. So let's just create a new backup. And then you can see that it's done saving the database. And this is very useful if I'm going to create a schedule here. And I'll show you that as well. So backing up. And it's done. So this is my log of my backups. And then if I go to backup schedule, this is for the paid plan, but just to show you what it does, if you are paying for this plan, you'll be able to set an automatic schedule. Let's see this area here. It says choose the weekly backup day. So you can set this up to back up all your files. This is going to be your Drupal installation. It's going to be your files that you've saved on the server, and then your database as well. And this will allow you to have this regular backup. And so if someone messed up your site, you can easily restore it using Pantheon here. So let's go ahead and check out something else here, which is this connection info here. And if I wanted to access my command line, if I wanted to edit my database directly, my MySQL database, I can do that using this. So for those of you that are very familiar with command line, getting into the server, this is what you can actually utilize here, this information to connect. And then I also have the ability to go into my settings here, and then I can delete my site if I wanted to. Then I can also look at this. This is my PHP information, as well as go into here, and then I can see what Drupal version I have here. And then again, if you are in Drupal and you go into your Drupal reports, you can also find a lot more going to your status report, looking at your exact PHP version, looking at your database version. This is using MariaDB, which is a fork of MySQL. I can see that I'm using Nginx 1.16.1. This is an alternative to Apache. And then I can see my version of Drupal here. But this is just a quick video to show you some of the advanced settings that you can view and change, and even you can back up your site as well. And this is Pantheon specific. If you go to SiteGround, it's going to be different, And if you use a VPS, it's just going to be your terminal, pretty much a black command line, very similar to using your DOS command line, kind of like something like this. So that's more advanced. And then with Pantheon and Acquia, you'll be able to access a graphical user interface that will allow you to do some of these administrative tasks without having to do code directly. And it also gives you the option to use code if you wish and go into the servers and do some command line. And that's for advanced users. So that is all for this lesson.